used to be. Too many fucking tuna sandwiches.
Hello, Dexter Morgan fans, and welcome to the Dexter New Blood Wrap-Up Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Reynolds, writer and producer of the Showtime original series Dexter, and now the new Showtime special events series, Dexter New Blood. First things first, for those Dexter New Blood Wrap-Up listeners who still don't have Showtime yet, I have a solution for you. Visit show.com/DexterPod for a special limited time offer. Try Showtime free for 30 days, then pay just $8.99 a month for 12 months. This offer is for new customers only and expires January 3rd, 2022. So get on it, because you don't want to be listening to this podcast without knowing what's already happened. It'd be just spoiling everything. Now, joining me today to break down episode 6 of Dexter New Blood is two of Iron Lake's finest, David Magidoff, who plays Officer Teddy Reed, and Katy Sullivan, the glue that holds Iron Lake Police Department together, Dispatcher Esther. And later we're going to talk to the writer of this episode, Warren Hsu Leonard, and discuss how the story came together. But for now, let's get into it. Oh my God, I am so happy that you two are here.
I think
that's David.
I think you're happier than me.
That's just sort of a general thing between you and I. That I'm generally happier, and you're.
I'm pleased to be here. It's pleasant. This has been pleasant, and I can't wait for it to continue to be pleasant. But Katy, please, I don't want to overtake you here.
No, I think I am more excited to be here than you, clearly. So that's great. That's fantastic.
Both have. I remember when we watched at the premiere, you both got laughs almost immediately. Technically, I mean,
well, Katy was on screen first.
Yeah, I showed up before.
I mean, yeah, that's true too.
It's not a contest, although it's kind of a contest.
It's kind of a contest. Comedy is always a.
Katy consistently wins best hair on.
That's
on
right.
Dexter
Fair.
New Blood.
Fair.
Let's talk about how you guys became actors, because a lot of times people, want to know how you got to be where you are. You both have like very different journeys, I imagine. Katy, how and why and all of that.
I always liked being the center of attention, but at some point when I was a kid, I saw and I was like, how the hell are these children doing this? And I grew up in Alabama, so like that was not a thing. You couldn't go audition for a movie or for TV or whatever. So I went to my first audition when I was 12, and I have just been an actor as long as I could muscle my way to the front of the line my entire life. Got my degree in acting, went to a conservatory in St. Louis called Webster Conservatory, and primarily did a bunch of theater and spent some time doing some theater, and now I'm bouncing around on TV. That's,
I mean, so it was your true north, it sounds like. It wasn't like, like Warren, who's going to be on the episode later, has a very different journey to becoming a writer.
No.
Very unexpected,
my parents.
This was it.
My dad was a doctor. My mother is a scientist, and they were like, "Dear God, our child wants to be an actor. Like, we don't know what to do with her except just let her try." So, that's where we are.
So they're supportive. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Magidoff, how about you?
First off, I want to amend my excitement level of being here. I am thrilled, to be perfectly honest, unabashedly, to be doing this with you, Scott. Doing this means that I was in Dexter New Blood. That is not what I thought would have happened to me a year ago. So honestly, it is a joy that this is even happening. I began acting just through improv comedy, and I made fun of all my friends who went to college for acting degrees. Katy, did you?
I've paid it off, so it's fine. It's fine.
No, it's great. And I was an idiot, though, because I'm the one who came out with an acting degree, and my friends who were going in with acting degrees came out with other degrees. So the joke's on me, but I guess it worked out too. So I don't know. Maybe there was no joke at all. And improv's been my through line. I somehow have a very odd career of hosting game shows and being in high-profile hour-long dramas, and it's been a blast. I don't know how it happened, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Were you guys, were you both fans of the original series when it came out, or was it something new to you?
I was the biggest Dexter fan. I don't even know if I've gone on the record saying that yet, but I think it was the last show that I watched live where you would be like, oh, I have to, it's 8:00. We got everybody shut up. Like, like it was one of those types of shows for me. It was just, I was such a big fan. So even getting an audition for this show was terrifying and exciting. And I was so pumped to be able to be a part of this. I mean, auditioning has changed so much from what it used to be where you'd go into a room and you'd meet people and all of that. And now it's just a video on your iPhone and you send it in, and that's kind of how you start the process. And then the callbacks are a crazy
I feel
thing.
like that's harder.
Oh, it's totally harder. It's hard to know where to look. Like, it's hard to know, like, do I look at the green dot? Do I look at the person's face on the screen? Like, if it, you don't. Yeah. And acting is all about connecting with other people. So the idea of not being able to look into somebody's eyes is really a challenge.
So David, how about you? Fan of the show back in the day? How did you, and then auditioning, the process, all of that. People are very interested to know how that happens. And
did not watch a lot of the original run of Dexter. And I'd like to follow that up with, I think that worked out in my favor because I didn't come into Iron Lake knowing a lot of history with Dexter Morgan. And I think it's nice to not know. I think it's nice to sort of like be fresh and be new. So that's my spin.
Jack
on
Alcott felt the same way. Like he stopped watching it. Like he was catching up. And there's like, I don't want to know too much. For me, for Harrison's sake, yeah. It
makes all the sense in the world. The less we know, the better. And you go for it. And that was this wonderful experience. I did a tape, and then they were like, oh, we want to see you do a little more of this. And then I did another tape, and Scott was, I think, the first person to give me a little bit of good news that it was looking good. And then it sounded like Showtime said yes to me, to hopefully their happiness. And here we are.
What was your first impressions of your characters when you finally got to see? Because it's pretty secretive, the whole process. I mean, I remember like Jack told a story about he didn't even know he was Harrison until he was reading against Michael. He was a character named Randall,
Right.
But you guys, it was a little more open as far as what your characters. So first impressions. My
first impression of Esther was just like, oh my God. Let's get out the blue eyeshadow. Like, how extra can we be? And, how she just was so colorful that she just sort of leaped off the page for me. So like, I immediately just went way too far. And I was like, they will pull me back, but you didn't. Like, I just stayed there. So it was, she just is, I think she just loves being such an extravagant, dresser and hair and nails and all of these things that, I mean, honestly, as an actor, there's very little to do when you look like that. You just let the wardrobe and the makeup and the hair do all the work for you. It's really what I would like to say about Esther.
Yeah. And it took a while, man. I remember every morning you had to come in earlier than most people.
I was always the earliest person by hours because of all the teasing, the teasing of the hair.
Yeah, it's like the hair and then the makeup and then the nails.
Yeah, yeah.
The nails were their own character.
100%.
I remember that episode 3, I think it's episode 3, when Dexter walks into the station and Esther's on the phone just gossiping up a storm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who can blame her? She's the one that is the most connected. I feel like sometimes the right jobs find the right people. And I think being a police dispatcher was just the perfect outlet for Esther and her desire and hunger for knowledge, or AKA gossip. She knows everything before everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, the minute Dexter walks in the place, she's already asking about the Matt and the gun.
Right? Immediately.
And is actively, hungrily interested in everybody's opinions about it. And it doesn't even feel like she's necessarily wants to know so that she can spout her own opinion, which she'll give. Yeah, she'll give.
She does, though.
She does. She's a giver. She's a giver.
Yeah.
But she's also, I just think she has just this this hunger for information. And that is sort of her seat of power.
Yeah, right. The first person you meet when you walk into the Iron Lake Police Department. David, Teddy.
Teddy Reed. Teddy was exactly what my favorite parts to do, which is I look at it and go, I can't be a cop. And then I go, oh, wait, that's what they want. Oh, wait, that's exactly who this guy is. I usually play either the most wide-eyed, naive person in the room or the smartest person in the room. And I think Teddy's both. I think Teddy thinks he sometimes can be the smartest person in the room and then realizes quickly that he is also the most naive person. I think it happens instinctually. And I've told you this, Scott. I love, it's one of my favorite things about Teddy. I remember in the breakdowns when I was getting ready to audition, and it says, he was in Afghanistan fighting or, was served there for a time. And my brain was like, all right, so he's been overseas. He saw some things. And I kept trying to figure out how to weave that into the small town cop. Let's just say it makes sense that he sat behind a desk.
Yeah, I feel like I get the sense if Teddy served in the military in any way, he was like in the cafeteria. Like he was wearing rubber gloves. Yeah.
Scooping mashed potatoes.
But they were the best mashed potatoes any people wanted to go to his base for those mashed potatoes.
A lot of butter. The secret is just too much butter. And also, I came in clean shaven and I auditioned clean shaven and I came in with the mustache because I had a gig previously that I used it for. And I was very curious if you guys were going to say yes or no to the mustache. And I got the thumbs up from Clyde Phillips saying he loved it. And
you're still rocking it too, though. So like you think the mustache is here to stay for a beat?
I think we're at least finishing 2021 with it. That's where I think we're at with it. Who knows what next year might bring, but he and I are simpatico.
Let's talk about the sense of community. One of the things that we really wanted to make different back in the old show, I'll tell David this because he didn't watch the show. Back in the old show, it was a very urban environment. They were a homicide squad. They dealt with 3, 4, 5 murders every week. It was bloody and violent. It was Miami. It was colorful. We chose sort of like this small town, three cops, right? Yeah. Angela, Logan, Teddy, and then Katy at the front. I want to talk about just what you guys did to sort of create this small town version of the police force that Dexter's tangentially sort of involved with.
Well, I would say it starts with you guys first for literally putting us in a small town. We didn't shoot this in LA. We didn't shoot this in New York. Katy and me and Alano and Julia and everyone and you, we all moved and picked up our lives for a bit, essentially, and went into the middle of Massachusetts. I mean, which essentially was from the real Iron Lake, New York, of which there's the lake, there's no actual city, but it's still fairly close in the grand spectrum of things from probably where it really was supposed to happen. And we took over that tiny town of Shelburne Falls, which was absolutely beautiful, and everyone was so kind. Also, Katy was best friends and did a lot of theater with my best friend's wife, who, of course, is now my great friend. So we had an immediate connection from there. And so, it's a small world, right?
All I knew was that he was working on the show. I didn't realize who we were in relation to each other right away. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to look out for this guy named David. Like, that sounds fun. And then he was sitting next to me for my first day of shooting.
He's your closest.
It was sort of that isolation in terms of, COVID, but also being out there on location and being together in that way. And say, when you're done, you're like, want to have dinner? There's nothing else for you to do. So you go to dinner with each other and you really start to build true bonds with your cast members, which can only translate to genuine interaction on screen.
Another one of my favorite moments is when in the first episode, when Dexter and Angela are getting busy in a car. You guys don't know that. Esther might know. I have a feeling she kind of knew something was happening. The way that she kept getting Angela kept pulling Dexter over.
Oh, you think Esther kind of knows that they do this little play?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Esther. Yeah. Either that or she's on the treadmill. Like, what is she? Why are you breathing heavy? Like, what are you doing, Angela?
But when Angela's like, can you send Teddy? And just that look across.
That was my first day on set. And just that, I knew immediately that day. I was like, this is good. And I was like, I will take you and I will put you in my purse and I will have you forever. You know what I mean? Like, it was just sort of one of those people that's like, yeah, you know, but also like, we immediately like played well off of each other, which is always exciting to then go back, you know, and do more.
As the season goes on, even though there may not be lines that are happening or whatever, we see you guys all the time. It seems like every time we're in the police station, there's Teddy, there's Esther.
We lived a lot of life at those desks.
We did.
Yeah, David's been like posting pictures on his Instagram of his desk and the life at his desk. I think it's been.
I saw.
Yeah,
I did that today. What's the life of, there's rubber band balls. I don't want to do any spoilers.
That was very important to me.
Balls, and there's, I haven't posted it yet, but I took photos of the magazines that props and art department did so well. There's a poultry monthly. That is a real magazine.
The centerfold in that
lived
thing
in the Iron Lake
was
PD office.
Crazy. It was crazy.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Another favorite moment. I know I'm just like talking about all the stuff I love what you guys have been doing, but it's in episode 6 when Dexter comes walking into the station. Esther immediately knows what just happened with this. There's a breakup is imminent.
Well, look at the track record of who we're talking about. She goes through them, I will say this. I feel like Esther has a real soft spot for Jim. And I feel like the minute Jim walks in, I think Esther is hoping Jim is the one for Angela. Like, I really feel like she's like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the one. And I feel like, they have a very sweet relationship. And I think that's part of the fun of the series and of Dexter in general is his charm. And the fact that he has learned how to simulate a human being, like he sort of does this thing where he's like, I'm doing all this stuff on the inside, but on the surface, I am pretending to be a normal human being with feelings and, all of that stuff. And he's really good at it. And I think that that's where, when we looked at the original series, where people never assumed it was him, there had to be big moments for people when they realized it, because he plays that game so well and he wears that mask so well. And I think that that's where his relationship with Esther sits, is in this just charmed. She's charmed by him.
Yeah. Like when they hug in the previous episode, and he's like, "You bring it in," and they hug, and all Dexter's Jim Lindsay is like looking for human compassion about his child and warmth and love. Dexter Morgan is looking over the shoulder and going, "I'm going to kill this mofo."
Exactly. So like it's and she in that moment is like, "Oh, you come, you poor thing. Like, here, bless your heart." Exactly. Yeah.
I've watched some of the episodes now from the previous seasons. How can I not? And what's fun about this new season, though, is that he actually 10 years in, he very much is trying to put a face on in those 8 seasons. There is a real, he wants to make humanity work for him. He really wants to be a person who loves and enjoys life and sits down and has meals with family at a very voracious way that is very beautiful. And so it's fun to actually see him try to he has it and he's trying to hold on to it. I think that's really what's making this special. And that's what I think makes it actually so special when he walks in and then just me and Katy and Alano looking up at him like we all see and like seeing that Angela walks through. It is this like, oh Lord, the last thing you need is dating advice from any of these three people. And then he gets the breakup playlist stuff from Logan, and oh my gosh, it's just a cringe moment, but it's Iron Lake PD at its best.
This was sort of like your biggest episode. You want to talk about that when you got to 6 and the process of, was that like week 1 or 2? We just put you in a snowsuit and stuck you in the woods. It was day 1.
Day 1.
Even better.
I was put in the snowsuit. I met Marcos. You're there. Everyone's in the puffiest jackets
and
that
masks
North and could make. Yeah, whatever Patagonia coats and everyone had 2 of them with COVID masks and face shields and goggles just for the cold and the wind. And I'm wearing a giant snowsuit. I've never worn anything that big in my life, with a beanie, with everything. And I'm coming off this snowmobile like I do. And meeting Julia for the first time, meeting Marcos, the director, for the first time. Clyde was also there, but Clyde is known for having like goggles on top of goggles and hats on top of hats. So a lot of people never really knew what his face looked like in general.
Yeah, first 50 days of winter.
Right.
Yeah. And you're just like, all right, and here we are. And I have to have this like vulnerable moment and, sharing he's never seen a dead body before. Clearly, that was the giveaway of not a lot happened in Afghanistan, Scott.
I figured you get it.
There's a really interesting thing that happens with actors and specifically with television, where, and you saw it with all the guest stars too, you just show up and everyone did all their work. Everyone did like they lit it for like 2 hours. All the lighting department and the DPs got all the focusing right, and the director has storyboarded this experience. You guys have been breaking the story and have written it and have rewrote it and have gotten the notes and everything. And now here you are, and the actor doesn't get to be a part really, generally, of much of that process, and you just sort of jump in 9 out of 10 times. And you just are expected to do the work. And that is the difference between a professional actor and just having a good time doing acting. Is like, to do TV and film work, you have to be ready to get very little and know that it's probably 2 or 3 takes tops. I'm glad I've had enough experience to know that and to not be annoyed or upset or anything by it, and just to be able to jump right in and be like, and instead actually enjoy it. Be like, how cool is this that they trust me so much? How do they trust us so much? That don't look at it. I look at it that way, and then I can just jump right in, and my stupid old snowsuit, covered in everything, meeting everyone for the first time, being like getting in a van, driving up a mountain, getting in a gator, driving up. I haven't met anybody, I haven't done anything, I haven't talked to anybody about this scene, and you just got to get right into it. And to me, though, it's a compliment, and I think it's actually a really cool moment to look back on.
In some ways, it's a lot about your initial instincts, and you bring more of yourself to something instead, because you're not having weeks and weeks of rehearsal necessarily like you do for theater or you do for even a film. Like there's tends to be more preparation and rehearsal and stuff. And with this, it's kind of just like being really in the moment and alive, which I think you get on TV that is really fun as an actor.
And it was even more intense this season of Dexter New Blood because of the way we had to shoot it and because of COVID restrictions. Normally back in the old show, we would do a read through, at some point during the week where all the actors that were coming on, maybe just for an episode or two, would be able to meet everybody, and you'd hear it, you could adjust from it. On this, we were not able to do any read-throughs, and we were jumping around from episode to episode. I mean, to your point, David, that like we were out in the woods, in the cavern, in the mountains with snow everywhere. On day 1,
a real cave.
4 months later, we're in a cave that Eric Weiler and Heather have made, this incredible cave on set. And you have to pick up right where you left off, even though that was 3.5 months ago.
Yeah, and to me, it's a special thing. It's the magic that we do. Like I look at those moments and I just go, how cool that when you watch the show, it all's that's movie magic. That's why we do what we do, to see the story be pieced together, and you can do something months apart, and it's just so fun how everything has to come together, and you can't take any of it for granted. And I think that's what's making this season very special. Watching it.
Continuing on that though, I love when at the top of it when Teddy's about to go in the cave, he's like, I don't know what's going to happen to me if I see a dead body. They get inside, they find this very surprising dead body, and it's Teddy who's like this, not the strong one, but Teddy's the one that's like offering as much compassion as he could give to his boss that he's kind of afraid of.
Yeah, because I think he's realizing that she's picking the pieces together and pulling the pieces together, that this might be someone this might be Iris, and I think she's like, I hope it's not, but at the same time she's probably like, I hope it is, because this is all she's been focusing on for a long time now. So this is a major moment, and I felt very like, as a person, it's like, even though Julia just got the script as an actress like any of us, and learned her lines like she did and whatnot, but like Julia really takes things to heart, as we all know, and she really got herself grounded in the experience, and I really wanted to be there for her as a storyteller, as an actor, as a moment in that moment to just recognize. I think Teddy, I'm an empathetic person, and I wanted to lean into that for this moment, where I'm not just like a complete dunce and just like, why you
didn't
so
go for the
sad?
joke.
Why are you so sad, Chief Bishop? And I don't know.
It was great.
Yeah, and it's a lot going on in that moment. And like you said, they created such an amazing experience with the cave, and I was so excited to start with that scene, and I knew that was like the last week or two we were doing, and it was such a fun thing to look forward to, like crawling through. They're making the caves, they're constantly misting it with misters, we're of course wearing these giant snowsuits now in the studio, so we're schwitzing.
And the rat.
Schwitzing.
We added a rat.
The mouse, came through, and they did a bit with Teddy, where I like jump back and like, oh gosh, and that Teddy's mousophobic and stuff. But it came out really cool, and but Julia did have to get in there with that rat. Yeah,
we wanted to really get that sort of claustrophobic feeling that you get from like Neil Marshall's The Descent. I feel like it worked out that way. One of the things I always ask the actors when they come on the podcast is, do you have any like favorite moments or memories, from working on it? Not past 6, or it could be things in the dressing room, or something strange that happened, and the drawing that the PA made of you in the hallway. It could be anything.
It sounds so cliche and stupid, but this entire experience was just a pinch me situation. And I have to say that my first day on set, and like much of my time with Michael C. Hall as my acting partner, and that first day I was just like, that's Michael C. Hall. that's you know who you look like? You look just like Dexter Morgan. Like that sort of, it's like we were saying earlier, I think it's rare to be a fan of something and especially something that was already ended. Like, how would we have ever known that this was going to be a thing again, and let alone be a part of it? So just top to bottom, the whole thing.
Yeah, I asked a couple people who'd previously worked on the show. I was like, hey, any people to look out for, heads up, or this or that? And of course, this person said, for the first thing this person said, I'll let them remain nameless, but was Scott Reynolds is a very great guy. So I'm not joking. He's laughing. That's the first thing.
That's lovely.
I'll share one of my favorite things that happened on this set was watching David Magidoff walk up to everybody and figure out their Enneagram number. So if you see David Magidoff in the street and you want to know your Enneagram number, he can help you.
Or if you know yours, he will be endlessly fascinated if you're just like, I'm an
That's
8.
right.
And he's like, fascinating. That's
I'm an
so
8.
interesting.
Scott, you tell everyone what your Enneagram number is, and everyone can Google this, ENNEA, and Google this. You're an 8. Katie.
We went through this. We went around and around and around. And I don't know what.
Didn't we say you were a 4? Didn't we nail a 4?
This is how serious I took it.
It's just a fun thing to do with everybody on set. When you're with people for 6 months, I learned a lot about everybody. It's the Enneagram. You can Google it. This is not something that I was paid to do. This is a free thing. It's a personality test. Enjoy. But yes, I learned everybody's numbers. And apparently, almost every woman on the show was an 8. I'm outing some people, but I don't think. But Jamie Chung was an 8. Julie is an 8. Johnny's an 8. Marcos was an 8. Giselle Jimenez was an 8.
You just added Marcos to that list of women.
He is a sensitive soul.
He's a sensitive soul. Well, listen, hey, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast, man. It was a joy and a pleasure watching you guys take a bunch of words on paper and turn them into magic and turn them into real people that I think people are going to connect with.
I'd like to we're going to do a little golf clap here right now for you that you wrote a wonderful, wonderful episode. Rewatching it for this podcast, it was, there's a lot that happens in this episode.
Yeah.
So,
Packed
well
it
done,
in.
my friend.
It was
Well
thick.
done.
It was a thick one.
Thanks so much, David. Thanks so much, Katie. You guys were amazing. Now joining me to break down Too Many Tuna Sandwiches, episode 6 of Dexter New Blood, my co-writer Warren Hsu Leonard. Let's get into it.
All right.
Let's talk about the process of writing this episode together. And feels like a year and a half ago.
It does. I think it was so long ago. It was a long time ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. But it was great. It was really fun. It was so much fun to get to work with you, Scott.
Ditto.
And I don't know if people know like how, sometimes writers will team up and pair up and work together on an episode, and they do it all different ways. But I think you and we broke the episode in the room, with everyone, with Clyde and everyone.
Yep.
And then we split the episode in half, I believe, right? So I wrote the first half and you wrote the second.
Yep. You wrote the first half, I wrote the second half. And then we swapped and passed it back and forth to each other and gave each other notes. And and then assembled. And it turned out really good, I think. I remember when we were breaking this episode that we were, we were dealing with a lot of plot. We've got Harrison taking a job with Kurt. We get to reveal who Kurt really is, that he is this insane killer that's sort of loosely based on a serial killer that captured women and brought them up to his cabin up in Alaska. But he was a lot more horrific things happened with that guy. It was funny. Clancy, when he got cast, he showed us a picture of a serial killer that had that sort of beard and the white hair. And he goes, "What if you think I look like this?" And we're like, great.
Great. Yeah. He's so good in this episode.
And then we start the episode with a bang, because it was one of those episodes where I remember when we got to the end of episode 5, that Gary and everybody at Showtime said, "Are we moving too fast?" Because at the end of the last episode, Angela finds out that his name is actually Dexter Morgan and that he faked his own death by that obituary. So that's where we started, and that was fun.
Yeah, an incredible moment, I think, in the history of the show. There aren't too many moments in the history of the show where someone, especially a police officer, basically sees through an identity that he's constructed. I mean, to me, it really reminded me of the Arthur Mitchell moment in season 4 when he gets to the police station and says, "Hello, Dexter Morgan." So it was really fun to get to write that moment. It's put him right in the flames, basically, in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, it's one of the things I like to do with shows, and I think you're the same way, that just really go for it. Really write yourself into a corner. Really try to crank up the stakes, especially nowadays where there's like so much stuff you could watch.
Yeah, I love that too. I think as a writer, whenever we're in a room and we get to a point where somebody makes a pitch and we're all like, "That's amazing," but how would we get out of that? I love that moment, and I think we always should lean into it, because that's when we know the audience also will be saying, "How do we get out of it?" And I think that we started in that place for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love too, like Dexter's response when she pulls him over, that they're going to play this weird cosplay thing that they have going on. And he's like, "Thank you." That was an addition that Michael did on the day, where it's like, "Yes, mistress.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And just how like that's truth. There's a certain amount of truth to that too, because Dexter's cosplaying this whole life.
Yep.
So even their relationship is sort of steeped in this sort of thing is cool and interesting.
Yeah, that was great. And I think where it led was great. That scene where Dexter is really tap dancing now with this long monologue that he has when they get back to the police station, and I think he's just trying to come up with anything plausible to give to Angela in this moment. And it's fun to watch him sort of do that tap dance.
And he's sharing truth too. Like a lot of that are the answers that we have been looking for, that a lot of fans have been looking for, I think, about the hurricane and all that sort of stuff. So it is Dexter stating a truth. He wouldn't have shared it any other way. He was forced to share because he was caught. But I remember when we were breaking this episode, when we were first sort of talking about it in the very early stages of it, one of the things I really wanted to do was sort of start with, she's basically saying, screw you, Dexter Morgan, and then ending the episode with, I need Dexter Morgan.
Yeah.
In order to sort of like heal this fractured relationship. Because that's a tough thing to come back from when this hasn't happened to me. I don't know about you. But to find out that the person you are having a relationship with is fake their death.
Yeah, I think it will be a very tough thing to come back from if he's able to. I'm not sure that he will be able to. Yeah, I think it's interesting that he is telling truth in this monologue, but at the same time, we end it with that moment of him saying, but you're going to keep my secret, right? And so he is also being very practical about this. He's sort of using her past as well, saying, I know that you understand what grief looks like, with Iris and your past, your husband. There's like a little bit of icky manipulation going on, sprinkled in with all this truth. And I think she responds to that in a great way. She sees it. She doesn't trust him anymore. And she says, I don't really need Jim Lindsay anymore. So that's great. And then, like you said, we come to this moment at the end of the episode where that's flipped and Dexter is what she needs.
I love that when Dexter walks out of there, he's sort of spinning out. Mm-hmm. He's not thinking necessarily, like, if this were any other time, he probably would have just like packed his bags and moved to another place. But he's got a son now. Yeah. That's sort of grounding him and keeping him here. Mm-hmm. He has a life that he sort of wants to hold on to, I love his blindness too when he says, does this mean you're breaking up with me?
Yeah. Right. Because he doesn't have a lot of experience with real relationships, I don't think. But I also think that conversation really opens up a thematic for the episode, which is, are you Jim Lindsay or are you Dexter Morgan? And I think through this episode, Dexter has been trying to be both and believes that he can be both. And I think this episode feels like one where he is being forced to choose a little bit in an interesting way and building for the rest of the season.
His pursuit of Kurt and what's happening between Kurt and Molly, how that sort of like surprise that hit him is very serial killer central to Dexter, putting the phone on the thing, listening to the conversation, thinking, is she the one that's into me? And then finding out this whole other thing, which leads to the title of the episode, Too Many Fucking Tuna Sandwiches. And then on the other hand, talking what you're talking about, that Dexter's like, am I Dexter Morgan or am I Jim Lindsay? There's this really moving, pivotal scene between Dexter and Harrison in therapy.
Yeah, that was a great scene. My entire family's in therapy all the time. So I had lots to build off of, years of therapy. But yeah, I think that that's the push-pull for Dexter is how honest can I be here? How much? Because it's a risk even to go to therapy. You don't know what Harrison's going to say to this therapist. So how is it worth the risk? Does Harrison really need this? He actually asks Deb, in the beginning, was therapy the right idea? So he's obviously internally battling with opening up and being Jim Lindsay and his family, And it got to that great line that was not my line. It was pitched in the room. I don't know if it was you or Clyde or someone else. Someone pitched, I feel abandoned on the couch right now.
That was Clyde.
Which I thought was
very
just,
beginning. Yeah.
That was Clyde. Yeah, great line and the button on the scene that made the scene worth it. And I thought it was very true to see these two. There's been such a push-pull between these two in this season. It was nice to see a little bit more of them coming together at different times and him trying a little bit. But I think the thing that's important, if you have these rifts between the characters, is to also try to make both characters right as much as possible. And, when you go back to that scene when he's going to get the job with Kurt and he's arguing, that's a scene that a teenager, someone who's like 17 would have with their parents. Like, I need a little more freedom. I want this job. You're not ready. I'm not going to sign the paper. I mean, that just on that level, it was a very understandable and relatable scene. And then to go even further, obviously, Dexter's concerns about Kurt make him right about it as well. And I think Harrison feels right in his position as well. Yeah. So I think it's really important that they were both right so often in their battling.
And then in the middle of all of that, we have this agent of chaos, Deb, who is just this voice of this is never going to work out to Dexter in the middle of it. I loved on the day the way that Marcos sort of popped her in and out and placed her all over the room, stating the truth that Dexter can never say to anybody. And then there was that great line that Jennifer Carpenter had in the day that wasn't in the script that I love, where she's like, after she lists out all the reasons why Dexter can't share anything more, she says, "You better talk, everybody's waiting for you." Which plays into that awkward silence that is actually, that may or may not be happening in those moments.
Yeah, I remember when we were breaking that episode, we had conceptualized Dexter and Harrison sitting on opposite sides of that sofa just to visually see the gulf between them. But then, of course, it makes so much sense for Deb just to be sitting in between them as well, talking to Dexter when it's his turn to talk. It's great.
Yeah.
Deb's character in this episode is fun because I think she's showing a lot of different flavors to Deb. There was that very nice moment in the beginning of like, I'm proud of you. That energy was really nice to see as well. It's not all being furious at him.
Yeah, well, especially in that scene if we're just talking about following Deb's sort of journey in this episode. One of my favorite scenes in the whole the Dexter New Blood season is the one after Harrison gets, dropped off by Chief Bishop for sleeping with her daughter. He goes to his room and you have Dexter and Deb alone. And it was like the most sort of, this is how they might have been if she were still alive and were friends and were siblings. When she's like, you are not ready to be a granddad.
That was a great moment.
The sex talk and all of that.
I loved it. Yeah. And they're chuckling about it.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, it was really wonderful.
I think it probably will make people sort of miss that relationship and let you understand that Dexter really does miss her and misses these moments and misses that sort of warmth. I imagine people want to know the significance of the movie quote from Magnolia. We may be through with the past, but the past ain't through with us. I'm a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I'm a huge fan of Magnolia.
Me too.
I think we both were just like, let's drop it in.
For me, the Magnolia quote worked because of Dexter's response after, like his line, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Was so Dexter and so like awkward, like not really
I didn't see that
the
one.
point that it felt very real and I think it worked in the moment.
Let's talk about Kurt, because that's the Kurt and Harrison. We as viewers understand who Kurt is at this point, and we see this kill just go terribly wrong.
The scene with the body, with the mask in the beginning of this episode, and when it doesn't work, that explosion of frustration, he plays it incredibly well. He's really fantastic in general, and specifically as Kurt.
And another really, clue really to like, what's he do? What happens to all of this? Which then just puts Harrison in more peril as we watch Kurt like walking through the parking lot and looking for another victim, maybe finding one, and watching Kurt's angst when she's like, let me ask my boyfriend.
This was an Easter egg that I got into the script, which is that girl's name is Winnie, which is my wife's name. And I thought it'd be a fun Easter egg just because she's okay. Like she gets away, it's fine. But yeah, my one little Easter egg for the episode.
Yeah, you have to be careful when you put your wife's name in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, in Dexter,
out.
I wonder if you see this in the same way that I do. Like part of this episode for me is sort of like the I See You episode, like thematically. Like I feel like, because this is the moment when Dexter really finally sees Kurt and you're building to that great sequence at the end of the episode. It's also an episode where I think Kurt sees Dexter and that there's more to Dexter than he's putting on, or at least Dexter knows more than he wants Dexter to know. And we also have a reveal, I think, about Harrison to some degree. Dexter at least firmly believes now that Harrison has a dark passenger and is one riding alongside him. and it seems to make a public appearance. So there's a lot of being seen in this episode thematically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like just what Dexter says when he's watching his son on the wrestling match. Watching everybody encouraging these children to like commit acts of violence against one another, which normally should make him feel like, oh, I am a bit more like these people than I thought. But even he's sort of confused by that, leading to that arm break, which I swear to God, every time we see that, I flinch and make and then Dexter's voiceover saying, "My son's dark passenger made a very public appearance today." There's so much going on in this episode. It's like a roller coaster.
It's juicy.
But a funny behind the scenes thing that happened. So we needed a fake arm, obviously, because we're not allowed to break people's arms in American television. I don't know. So they had one shipped over here, but because of timing and all of that, they just boxed it up and had somebody fly with it. But they didn't tell the person what was in the box. So when they got to the airport and they put it through the X-ray and all that, the person got stopped because it's a very real looking arm.
Of course.
They had to explain, no, I work for a VFX, I work for K&B. This is part of my job. This isn't a real human arm. But they opened it up and we're just like, what is going on? It's for Dexter. Oh, it's for Dexter. Okay, great.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Go with God.
Oh
So always make sure your people know what is going on.
Oh my God.
And then Angela making her own discovery.
Huge moment.
Solving a mystery that's been plaguing her whole life, One of the things that Julia Jones, made central to her performance was this feeling of guilt for what happened to Iris, for never knowing what happened to her.
That was something that I've been following along on sort of the Dexter Reddit and other places where fans of the show are gathering. And that's been a big question since really, I think episodes 1 or 2 is who is Iris? And there's been a lot of speculation. So it was interesting to drop that news and have Angela finally discover the fate of her old best friend.
Yep. And Julia was amazing in that whole sequence. Like, Eric Weiler built this big cave, built these small little tunnels that were just a little bit too small to like really, really help us feel that drive that she has. And if you watch her when she's crawling through in that really tight space, that's her really working hard, man.
That's great. The directing of that sequence was fantastic. That's Marcos, I guess. He did this episode, right? Yep. And intercutting between sort of the silence and darkness of that cave and the chaos of the match. It really built to a great crescendo and a great episode out with, that confrontation between Harrison and Dexter. And a moment where Dexter, again, has to choose between sort of his two different worlds, Harrison, and has to choose between, what's happening with Angela and whether it could mean that he could get caught.
Yep. Leading all the way back to, I don't need Jim Lindsay, I need Dexter Morgan. And it's funny, one of the things we do on this show all the way through is like, Dexter gets phone calls at the least opportune time.
Right.
Emergency phone calls, as he's having this big blowout with his son, where he's just trying to understand his son and trying to warn him about the dangers of Kurt and the things that Kurt could say and trying to connect with him so desperately. And then these phone calls just keep coming and coming and coming. And finally he has to answer, and she needs Dexter Morgan.
Amazing. One
of the things that's amazing to watch about Michael C. Hall is even just the way that he listens to Molly's podcast about the Bay Harbor Butchery. It's amazing that just watching somebody listen to a podcast with voiceover and all that, but he can be so engaging.
You just see it all on his face. That's great. By the way, just to mention, Molly, it's great. I'm a huge Jamie Chung fan.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff that she did in Lovecraft Country was incredible last season. And
so
it's
different from who she is here, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quiet, button-down person, and now this big outlandish person, Yeah, she's amazing.
And it was really fun seeing her, and the whole sequence with her going down into sort of the tunnel with Kurt was great. Very
reaching into her bag, getting out the spray. The whole time thinking, am I going to be, and that came from I forget what podcast we were listening to, but we were listening to a true crime podcast. Yeah. Where some guy was talking about how, all right, this is crazy, but I'm about to go walking into the house of the guy that I think is a serial killer. And it's that extent that you will go to tell a story, you know, how far you will go. And she's got that drive for sure. She's great. And it does, you know, we'll see what happens now that she's dug her heels in a little bit with Kurt and a little bit with this Jim Lindsay guy. So Warren, you share lots of great stuff on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle where people can follow you?
My Twitter handle is W Hsu Leonard. So it's WHSULEONARD. So at that.
Yeah, you share lots of great things about writing, lots of great things about Dexter, lots of great things about the stuff you're working on, the things that are close to your heart. You're a great find on Twitter and always positive, which
thanks, man.
Really love.
Love it.
But that's you in general.
And you too.
Yeah. You can find me at JScottAmy. Yeah. I'm not always as positive, but yeah.
Yes, you are.
Man, it was such a pleasure to write with you. I hope we get to do it again and again and again.
Absolutely.
You're so talented. Yeah. You're so smart. So good.
Stop it, Scott. It was really fun doing the episode with you too. And I think it's been really fun watching the episodes, and things are really starting to get messy for Dexter. And it's going to be really fun seeing what comes next. So good luck with the rest of the podcast. And thanks for having me on. It's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Warren. And that's a wrap for this week's episode. Listen every Tuesday and subscribe to the Dexter New Blood Wrap-Up wherever you get your podcasts, and watch Dexter New Blood Sundays only on Showtime. This official podcast of the Showtime original series Dexter New Blood is produced by Showtime in conjunction with Malka Media.